Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Imagine that an argument over a parking space could lead to a divorce. But nothing is impossible for Karen. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story. Parking spot causes divorce. Okay, this isn't a story about me, this is about my neighbor. This is exactly how he told me this story, and I witnessed portions of it for myself. Backstory. My neighbor, who we'll call David, not real name, and my other neighbor, who we'll call Karen, not real name, often got into arguments about who owns what part of the property. They live right next to each other, so this is understandable. Karen was known for being a Karen, so this explains a lot. Karen had just got engaged with her boyfriend, who we'll call Kyle, not real name, who went over to her house a lot, like every other day, and would spend the night there. We saw his car parked there a lot. Kyle would park his car in front of David's lawn because Karen is part of a large family, so they have many cars. Therefore, there's not room in the driveway. David got a new camper recently, one of those massive ones that are practically buses. They needed a place to park it because they didn't feel comfortable leaving it in a public place, but Kyle's car was there. Around this same time, news was spreading around my neighborhood that Kyle and Karen had gotten married. Kyle moved in with Karen and started using the front of David's lawn as his assigned parking spot. He was told that it was part of her property because Karen was a dumb and didn't understand that property lines exist. There was an incident in the past with a bench and another with a few trees. Eventually, David got tired of Kyle parking where they wanted to park their camper. He'd been having to park it down the road in the public camper places, or whatever they're called. He began plotting his revenge. His plan was to park the camper in front of Kyle's car so that he would have to pull out backwards. This way, it would have been a struggle to get his car out between one of Karen's siblings' cars and the camper. When this plan happened, Kyle came running up to David's door and began shouting the usual, "I'm calling the cops," and whatnot. When David didn't answer, he tried to inch his way out. He ended up bumping into the car behind him and putting a good-sized dent in it. He instantly ran up to Karen's siblings and began apologizing and blamed it on David. Now, Karen's entire family was mad at David. David said he saw this through the window and was laughing hysterically. Karen actually managed to think logically for once and blamed it on Kyle. But it was okay and insurance will cover it, or something like that. Kyle began going off on Karen about how insurance would charge him for the damage, so they ended up fighting about insurance or whatever. This whole thing unraveled outside David's house, so he listened in through the open window. They then came up to his house. David answered the door, and all of them but Karen instantly started going off about how he caused a dent in Karen's sibling's car. He said that Kyle's car was parked on his property and he needed to park his camper somewhere. He dug out the property line drawing or whatever and showed them all. Karen was pissed. Karen said that he'd drawn those lines himself and that the actual lines were farther to the left, giving her more property, and expanding past where Kyle was parked. Keep in mind, Kyle was parked by the windows of David's house, clearly on David's property. At this point, I could hear her yelling from a few houses down and walked over to listen for that sweet, sweet internet karma. Karen ended up calling the cops because David was disturbing the entire neighborhood. 2 cops showed up in a car and instantly sided with David after reviewing the property lines. Karen was fined over $700 for misusing 911. Kyle ended up having to pay $900 for damages done to the other car. Apparently he broke part of the engine or something. And that's not all. Karen and Kyle ended up divorcing because Karen lied to him and said he was on her property, and Karen saying that it was her house so she could lie if she wanted, and other things of the sort. And our second story. Crazy boss tries to make me work more than anyone, but doesn't want to pay me accordingly. Minimum wage in Brazil was 954 reals a month, or $180. Back in May 2017, I started working in a company as a 2D designer intern. 2 months later, I started working hourly, but with some benefits. I started making 1,500 reals a month, or $280. 1 year has passed and I was put in commercial proposal for sales. I was one in a team of 3, me included. Just as I learned to make quotes, one of my colleagues quit his job to work for the government, so it was just me and my friend. Let's call him Ed. Our boss was always a pain in the A, but we usually ignored her or complied. She was a real nitpicker. After some time, my manager started to make crazy complaints to me and my colleague and asked things like, "Sales are decreasing. Why have you put our prices down? Put the prices up again and charge for XYZ." I complied, but she called us for talks every week and always contradicted herself. When she told us to raise the prices, we did, and she complained. Lowered our prices, she complained. In February of 2019, my coworker and friend Ed was fired for no apparent reason, but he wanted to quit for some time, so it was the best for him, actually. Okay, things were great, right? Wrong. I was left in the department alone. Besides having to do the work of two, I had to teach someone to help me. So actually, I was making my job, my friend Ed's, and my boss. The best part was finding out that the girl I was teaching was making double my money for the same work hours, $560 a month. The new girl had just started learning and could not be sending our clients our quotes for the jobs, but she complained about my teaching and everything. She could go to my manager. At the same time, my manager starts to tell me to stop holding the new girl's work back and to let her work freely. I was PO'd. But here's where the fun starts. I now allowed the new girl to talk freely with our clients and do her work as I did mine. She insisted in asking for my advice on all matters, emails, doubts, projects, and many more. Most of the time I helped, but it started to be so frequent that I started not helping anymore. Like, wasn't she being held back by me? FYI, my contract was about to end by May 2019, so there were only a couple of months before it ended. Before my contract ended, I sat down with my boss so we could discuss my new payment and benefits. I was going to be salaried when my contract ended. I told him I wanted my salary to be at least what Ed did, 2,500 reals or $445 per month. She neither agreed nor denied, just said, "Okay, we can settle this when your contract ends." When my contract ended, I sat down again with the manager in the financial HR department. They wanted me to get paid 2,000 reals per month, or $370 before taxes. I declined it. This was followed by this conversation. "Boss, why are you refusing the payment? It's more than enough for someone your age," 19 at the time. HR, "Why are you declining the offer?" Me, "Because I'm the only person in the department that knows how to work in every other department, plus both boss and new girl don't know how to do my work." Boss, "That's not true. I know how to do your job. I'm better at it than you." Me, "I don't think so. And if I'm going to get paid because of my age, not my knowledge, I'm not going to work here anymore." HR, "You have a point, but why not just comply with our offer?" Me, "New girl makes double my payment. She's 3 years older than me and knows not even half of what I tried to teach her." Both HR and boss, surprised Pikachu face. Boss, "If you don't accept what we're willing to pay you, you don't have to keep coming." Me, "Okay, then I'll bring my uniform and my papers to you tomorrow." Boss, "Wait, you can't just go out like this." Me, "I can. I don't have to work here. I don't have to work here if I don't have a contract and if I'm not going to get paid properly." HR, "You can bring your papers tomorrow morning and we can discuss this later. Thanks, OP." Boss, "Okay then." The next day I brought my papers, uniform, and told my now ex-coworkers that I was leaving and got my messages and emails to be forwarded automatically to the new girl's email and phone number. I had approximately 150 negotiations ongoing and was responsible for 6 out of 8 affiliated factories that constantly sent me emails. I went to RH, gave them my papers, said goodbye to all the factory, around 150 employees, and finally went to my ex-boss and said my goodbyes. Boss, "You know you're letting us down, don't you?" Me, "I do. That's why I'm not coming back." Boss, "Just F off." Me, "Gladly." The defeated look on her face made me smile for weeks. Nowadays, I'm working as a civil engineer intern at a multinational company that pays me more, has healthcare, health insurance, price-to-earnings ratio, and oh boy, many more. Every once in a while, I send an email from my new company to my ex-boss asking for quotes, but never buy there. I do that just to give them some trouble. Maybe I'm a bit of a jerk for doing this. I don't care. Last month, my ex-boss called me asking for some advice and joked about me coming back to the company, and I gently refused. We laughed, but she was really anxious about it. I know that the company is doing okay, but many people were fired due to bad client services, bad prices, mistakes in quotes, and flaws in execution. I'm happy, but I'm expected to finish my college next year. Maybe I'll get hired by the place I'm working at now, but who knows? And our last story. I got my bully fired. So this happened over a decade ago. I was working in a clothing store. It was a pretty great gig. I had decent hours. I got a 50% discount. The only drawback was one of my coworkers. I'll call her B. B was one of those people who would be pleasant, then would suddenly say something nasty and laugh it off. She would leave me nasty notes, things that said, "How stupid are you? How did you not know X?" Or would simply make comments straight to my face. I talked to my manager about it, who talked to B, but not much was done. Eventually, a promotion became available, and both B and I were up for it. We both were interviewed, and eventually I got the position. I felt pretty good about that, but it only made the bullying worse. Eventually, one night when I was closing, I realized that there had been a trend that had been going on for a while. B would have a return, but the slip with the customer information would be missing. I was a little frustrated, and if I'm being honest, smug, because I always kept track of that slip. Then a thought occurred to me. I pulled out a receipt from a sale I did to B earlier and compared the card numbers, and lo and behold, they matched. I was in a state of shock. I called my manager and explained what I had found. She had me go back through the last few weeks' sales to see if I could find any more. Almost $5,000. When B arrived at work the next morning, the police were waiting in the back room. I wasn't allowed to be anywhere near the store because they were worried she'd retaliate. I don't know all the details of her punishment. I purposefully kept my distance, but I heard something about her having to repay them. It doesn't end there, though. A few months later, I was shopping at the other mall in town and saw B working for another clothing store chain. The next day, I went by the store in our mall and chatted with my friend who worked there. I casually mentioned that I noticed B was working there now and asked what she thought of that. My friend said that she didn't know too much since B had worked at the other location, but then asked if I knew anything she should know. I said that I didn't want to cause anyone to lose a job, but that doing a criminal record check on any new employee would be a good idea. Next thing I knew, B didn't work there any longer. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.